Hello friends and welcome back to my channel. My name's Eleanor and today I've got a May wrap-up video for you. So I managed to read 4 and a bit books in May and I'll talk you through all of them. I say a bit because my first book I read the majority in April but finished it in May, so Goodreads counts it as a May read. I don't know how I feel about it, but we're going with Goodreads anyway. And that comes to a page total of 2,796. I don't know what my average is, so I don't know if that's good or not, but I think 4 and a bit books is pretty good for me given how little I read while I was studying for uni. So I'm quite impressed with myself. After this month, it means that I'm now on 24 out of 30 books for my Goodreads challenge. I set my challenge quite low because in previous years at uni I've not read as much as I wanted to, and I've had university this year as well, so I thought if I gave myself a lower goal then I'm more likely to reach it and then feel better about it. I can always increase that goal when I beat it. At 24 out of 30 is a lot more than I was expecting to have by the end of May, so I'm well on my way to smashing that goal and I'll probably be increasing it hopefully in the coming months. The first 3 books on this wrap-up are the final books in the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J Maas, so I won't be talking through the synopses because I'm sure most of you probably already know what the series is about, and if you don't then I don't want to spoil the series by giving the synopsis of these 3 because it will just ruin the whole beginning of the series for you. All that you really need to know is that the series is about assassins and magic, murder, competitions, romance. It's an incredible series, it is one of my favourites, and if you haven't already then I highly recommend you put it on your TBR. The first book of my May wrap-up then is Queen of Shadows by Sarah J Maas. As I said, I read the majority of this in April, but I read the last 200 or so pages in May, so it counts as a book finished in May. This is the 4th novel in the Throne of Glass series, and it was my 2nd time reading it, I think. I loved it even more than I did the first time, actually. I noticed the little details a lot more now that I know how the series ends and I know the rest of the story. So I could spend a bit more time really thinking about what Sarah J Maas is foreshadowing, what little quips or actions or objects mean now that influence the rest of the series. I won't give away any spoilers, but one of my favourite parts of this book is the Arabin plan. If you know, you know. I thought that was incredible and it was one of the highlights of the book for me. So overall, I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. I think I kept the same rating that I gave it when I first read it. It's a really good read. It's fascinating, it's captivating, it's emotional, it's almost everything I could want. The second book I finished in May was Empire of Storms by Sarah J Maas. This the next in the Throne of Glass series, so it's book number 5. This is my favourite of the series by far. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. It's amazing, I loved everything about it. I've tabbed numerous events and passages that made me cry, or bits that I just loved, or quotes. It's just a fantastic, fantastic book. And yes, I rate this higher than I rate Kingdom of Ash. There's just something about this book that is so raw and so emotional that I can't not love it as much as I do. So much more happened in this book than I remember the first time around. There's so much more emotional scenes and high impact stakes that I completely forgot about, and was glad I forgot about it because it made my second reading even more exciting than the first time. And it only took me 2 days to read it, which goes to show how much I really did love this. I could not put it down. Anytime I was doing something that wasn't reading this book, I just wanted to be reading this book. It was a bit like an obsession, really. Next, you can probably guess, the book I finished is Kingdom of Ash, the final book in the Throne of Glass series. This is a whopper of a book. It's 980 pages. Didn't read this one in 2 days, but it wasn't many more than that. I did skip Tower of Dawn, as you can tell. I'm really sorry, Chaol fans, but I was really rereading this for the Selena Manon story. I'm not that bothered about Chaol. We'll probably read Tower of Dawn again in the future, but the main reason I was reading this was just to see that Selena story from start to finish. Having already known the story, but having the time to relish in the bits that I really, really loved. I still adore this book the second time around. I cried many, many times, as I'm sure a lot of you have if you've read this. It's a beautiful end to the Throne of Glass series, and the sense of relief I felt when finishing it was immense. Rereading this series back to back has been a massive obsession for me. I've been completely unable to think about or do anything else while I was reading it. I decided to read them as a bit of a distraction from lockdown, and they definitely worked. I also rated this one 4 out of 5 stars, mainly because it didn't beat Empire of Storms in how much I loved it. There are a lot of amazing details in here, there are a lot of intense scenes, and the plot is incredible, and the characters are fantastic, but it doesn't give me the same feeling of awe that Empire of Storms did. I love it, I do really adore this book, but because it's not Empire of Storms, I didn't feel like I could give it 5 stars. The 4th book I read was Half Bad by Sally Green. I originally read this in 2014 when the book came out, so it's another reread and is the first in the Half Bad trilogy. I reread it because I've had the second book, Half Wild, on my bookshelf for years and haven't read it, so I thought rereading the first one would be the right move before I read the second one. However, I'm not sure I want to read the second one now. I did enjoy this book, but I'm not 16 anymore and it didn't quite grab me as much as it did the first time. This book begins in second person, which is what drew me in the first place. I must have read a short story or something in second person and I just really find it fascinating, so I went on a bit of a second person spree and was trying to find books written in the second person. This one doesn't continue like that, but it is an interesting element that's added to it. The story follows Nathan Byrne, who's a half black and half white witch who is considered an abomination by the ruling White Witch Society. He's locked in a cage by the White Witches due to his status, but he must escape before his 17th birthday so he can search for his father, who's the only person left who can provide Nathan's 3 gifts in a ritual to give him his full powers. I do remember loving this the first time I read it. I devoured it. I think I read it in a day the first time. I probably read it in 2 days this time. It's aimed at 15-16-year-olds. The style is definitely for teenagers, but I also have some reservations about this that I didn't pick up the first time around. Namely, there are a few scenes where I would be tempted to put a trigger warning on. That's just my opinion, but it kind of concerns me given the massive influence books and social media have on teenagers. It's not a big aspect of the book by any stretch of the imagination, but it is definitely there. Overall, I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. It's a fairly average read. It's quick and easy. It is captivating, but there are some aspects I didn't like. Also, the pacing felt a little bit off for me at times. We either jumped forward too fast or didn't move fast enough at all. It was a bit hit and miss, I found. The final book I read in May is a big one, and that was The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. This is possibly one of the most anticipated reads of the year, aside from the newly announced Twilight rewrite, which I will not get into today because I have too many opinions on that. This is a prequel story to the Hunger Games trilogy and follows President Coriolanus. This is a prequel to the Hunger Games and follows President Coriolanus Snow in his youth. That is an aspect that divided a lot of Hunger Games fans. People didn't want a redemption arc, people didn't want to see him in a good light, and honestly, I think Suzanne Collins really pulled it out of the bag with this book. I think she was incredibly clever in the way she's portrayed Snow, and I think she's incredibly clever in the aspects she's added that have a whole new meaning for the Hunger Games trilogy as well. I have a lot of thoughts on this book, and I did end up writing a pretty long review on it for my blog, which I'll link down below, so if you've read this book, then go and give that a read. There are a lot of spoilers in that review, so if you haven't read it, I would be wary at first. But see if you agree with what I thought, and if not, then please tell me why. This isn't the prequel story that I wanted, but that doesn't mean that it isn't any good. I think this is actually a pretty fantastic book. It did a lot of things that I didn't expect it to do, and I'm so glad it did. Suzanne Collins has not pulled any punches in this depiction of Coriolanus Snow, and I loved that about it. She's unapologetic for him, she's unsympathetic towards him, and it's honestly really well written. There are some annoying aspects, however, which I go into more detail in my review post, but to mention a couple, the pacing is quite off sometimes. Some aspects move really slowly and you get into the rhythm of it, and then all of a sudden we've moved on and things are happening in rapid movement, and it's a little bit off-putting. There's also a constant listing of the tributes and their mentors, which just really threw me out of the story. We'd have this big list of the 24 tributes and the names of their mentors, and we had it 3 times in 100 pages. We get it, there are pairings, I'm aware, I don't need to see the list crossed off visually to know that it's happening. If you'd like to hear more about my thoughts and other people's thoughts on this book, then we are recording a podcast tonight for Bookstacks, the website I write for, so when that is available for you to listen to, I'll link that in the description as well. I wouldn't say I loved this in the way that some people loved it. There are definitely aspects I didn't like, and definitely aspects I thought could have been better. However, I still appreciate the cleverness with which Suzanne Collins has written this story, and it completely went against my expectations, which I actually was really grateful for. Overall, I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I definitely recommend it if you're a Hunger Games fan, and if you're not, then maybe this is the way you can get into the series. It's brought a whole new meaning to the Hunger Games trilogy, and I'm really excited to see what's next for the Hunger Games world. And that is everything I read in May. Overall, it's been a pretty good reading month for me. I only had one slight disappointment with Half Bad, but even then, that's not really a disappointment, it's just that I don't want to continue the series, which after all these years, I think is fair enough. I'm gonna let myself off for that one. I'm hoping June will be just as good, and I'm hoping that my June wrap-up will be full of books that I was just as excited to read. I've got an awful lot to get through next month, so fingers crossed that I manage it. If you haven't seen my June TBR, then it is my previous video. I'm taking part in the Make Your Myth Take a Readathon, and I've been pretty ambitious with the books I want to read. I decided I'm going to read 8 books, so we'll see if that happens, I guess. If you liked this video, then don't forget to like it, subscribe, and leave a little comment down below. Thank you everyone so much for watching. I hope you're all safe and I hope you're all well, and I'll see you on Tuesday for another video. Bye!